Now, by special request, we're going to dive into Venus-Chiron. Venus-Chiron is a very interesting astrological combination. Venus-Chiron has to do with the wounds of love. And the reason for this is because Venus has to do with love, and Chiron has to do with wounds that cannot heal. Now, for a very long time, I was quite anti-Chiron within my own practice of astrology, and then one day Chiron bulldozed himself into my astrological practice, and he hasn't left since. And what I've come to discover about Venus and Chiron in hard aspect combination is that Venus and Chiron has to do with a wound within our love life that does not heal. Because I have to make things make sense in terms of planetary combinations, Chiron for me manifests as the combination of Saturn and Neptune. And when we read the combination of stellar influences by astrologer and author Reinhold Eberton, he tells us that Saturn-Neptune has to do with the uninhibited progress of malady. According to Reinhold Eberton, Saturn and Neptune in hard aspects combination has to do with chronic ill health. When we bring Venus and Chiron together, in my mind, I think about it as bringing Venus in combination with Saturn and Venus in combination with Neptune. We know that Venus-Saturn is the combination of separation or sorrow in love, and we also know that the combination of Venus-Neptune is the combination of disappointment in love. So if we put all of these concepts together, Venus-Chiron can represent separation in love based on one's disappointment in the landscape of their love life. How does this manifest? Very often when a person finds himself with Venus and Chiron in hard aspects combination, they feel as if their lover can't deliver the goods. Or they feel as if there is something that's foundationally problematic in terms of how their lover is showing up in their lives, and no matter what their lover does, their lover constantly falls short. Now, this is quite different from Venus-Uranus, where the Venus-Uranus is simply picking their lover apart because that's a part of the Venus-Uranus disposition, even if there's nothing wrong with their wonderful lover to begin with. And it's also different from the Venus-Neptune, whereas there is a sense of disappointment in love because the relationship itself is disappointing, and the relationship is also not trying to be anything other than disappointing. Venus-Chiron is specific because when a person has Venus-Chiron, they find themselves in a love relationship where no matter what their lover does, the relationship still feels like a letdown. No matter how their lover tries to show up, they find that their lover has a foundational concrete ceiling beyond which their lover cannot extend their reach. It isn't that their lover isn't doing more because their lover doesn't want to do more, it's that their lover isn't doing more because their lover can't do more. And in a situation like that, it begins to feel like a genuine wound within one's love life. Now, these lovers can manifest from many walks of life. Sometimes a person has Venus-Chiron when their lover is physically sick, and as a result of that physical sickness, their lover cannot show up in a more robust way. Sometimes a person has Venus-Chiron when their lover is going through therapy, or when their lover has some sort of addictive tendency, and as a result of that, their lover comes into their life with the desire that the person with Venus-Chiron aids them and sponsors them through their process of recovery. There are multiple ways in which love can manifest in a person's life as a wound in need of healing. Now, one of the things that I've always found interesting about the story of Chiron is that while he did have a wound that was in need of healing, he eventually had to come to terms with the fact that he had this wound that would never heal. And so, when we have Venus-Chiron within our birth charts in hard aspect combination, there is a coming to terms that has to happen within us regarding the state of our love life. When we have Venus and Chiron in hard aspect combination, it's a moment for us to sit with all of the pain that love has brought into our lives and realize that within the body of that pain is the healing that we require in order to move on. That healing may not necessarily change anything about the reality of the relationship that we find ourselves in, but that healing allows us to come to terms with the relationship that we're in, for better or for worse. Now, sometimes we think that healing means the eradication of the thing that wounds us. However, very often, healing is stepping into a state of acceptance regarding what is occurring within our lives. I once heard a story of a team of people who practiced the work of the medicine Buddha. And within the context of their work, they took that into hospices. And particularly in the early 1990s, they took that into AIDS hospices, where people knew that they were going to die as a result of this incurable illness that they had. In taking the work of the medicine Buddha into these hospices, they were able to heal the fear of death that many of those patients had, and they were also able to help those people come to terms with their terminal illness. And so very often when we have Venus-Chiron within our chart, it does indeed represent a wound that's manifesting within our romantic interests, but it also has to do with us coming to terms with the reality of that wound and stepping into a state of acceptance, particularly if we're in a relationship that we know that we're not going to leave. The Venus-Chiron combination has to do with us accepting the realities of that relationship, us accepting the wound that that relationship represents, and us coming to a place where we're willing to do healing work surrounding that wound of romance so that we can continue to live our lives without feeling bitter or without feeling abused by life as far as this topic of love is concerned. Now, one of the things that I love about the Venus-Chiron combination is that it allows people with this combination to step into the work of love counseling, and particularly to step into the work of counseling in general. Because, as the old saying goes, it takes one to know one. And very often it's one thing to try to counsel someone from a space of textbook knowledge, where you haven't actually gone through any of these experiences that you're helping your clients to navigate. But it's a completely different thing for you to know within yourself what that pain feels like, and for you to sit with a person while they share that pain, because you will be able to understand them in a deeper way when they share with you some of their own wounds within their love life. So Venus-Chiron and hard aspects combination, it is a very big challenge as far as love is concerned, but it can also be a very rewarding combination to have, especially if we're desiring to work within the field of counseling and therapy and helping others who are going through those same wounds navigate themselves towards spaces of greater healing and freedom within their lives.